Enter the crib. Your Strike Back sit rep starts in 3, 2, 1. Wait, do we go on 0?
All right, Meebers. Whew. Big episode this week. Welcome back. We are talking about episode 6. Seriously. Spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. Stop listening. Don't listen anymore if you have not seen episode 6. Please.
And for the love of God, mute the hashtag and stay off social media if you don't want spoilers.
You don't want spoilers. Just,
self-responsibility here, people.
Yeah. I'm Kelsey.
And I'm Deb.
So we are going to be doing our episode 6 review. We hear from Jack Lothian, your behind-the-scenes facts. We talked to Dan MacPherson. We played It's Wyatt's Fault. It was so much worse than what we wanted. Fucking Dan. We have special guest, the director of photography, phenomenal job, Michael Wood. We are also really excited. It was touch and go for a while, but we know you guys are going to be pumped. We have special guest, Warren Brown.
Woo! Finally! We're so excited. Yay!
So a big episode for you guys, a big sit rep for you guys. We're going to try not to cry.
All right, I'm not making that promise.
Yeah, okay.
I can't even make that promise.
God, we both of us made the mistake to rewatch episode 6 before recording this, and God, there's a lot of tears.
That was the 5th or 6th time I've watched this, and it's worse with each rewatch because it's just
You're just waiting for it. Yeah. Okay, so first we want to get out of the way our overall feelings, but we're going to talk about when. We want to know from you guys when you knew what was happening, because Deb and I had totally different, completely like 100%, 180 degrees difference on what I fully bought into what was going on. I thought, I wrote down all these notes are like, they're gaslighting him and the therapist is in on it, and I had real weird questions about how old his kid was, but I literally wrote down in my notes, maybe Jack got the timeline wrong, or like they did like a shitty job with this, because I just couldn't, but I never bought in. And then until the end, when he's like, it's too late, of course, and she shows up, and then I'm like, fuck, he's dead.
We should tell people that we shared our notes, pictures of our notes with Jack.
Yeah.
Kelsey had like more notes than she's ever had.
Yeah, I was totally confused, totally bought into it. It was totally devastating. Deb, on the other hand,
I had 2 lines of basically two notes on my paper. The first was opening right into credits. Something's wrong. And like 2 minutes later, my last note for the season, for the episode was, fuck, no, he's dead. Fuck, no. And then I just stopped taking notes.
So after,
right away, I knew. I was like, nope, he's dead.
God. And going back and rewatching, of course, there's all these, like, the therapist, like, when you're talking to me, you're really talking to yourself, and, all these things. I'm like, oh, it should have been, like, but it's not. Anyways, so, you guys, after you get done watching this, please, 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 go online, go on Twitter, tag us, tell us, when did you know what was actually happening?
It's really, because we haven't really totally talked about this until now. I think it's really such a, I don't know how I want to say this, but the way that we both took this episode in is such an example of how we watch TV differently and how we watch these things differently, that you were like right there in the emotion and and I'm just like looking at all the clues going, okay, something's not right here, right from the start. I was on edge thinking there's the approach to this episode from, second one is different. There's something different going on here. Don't trust what you're seeing. And so it's just like, wow, what an example of how differently we watch and take in these episodes.
Yeah.
Not that I wasn't like bawling throughout the entire thing, but
Yeah.
you know.
Let's just say I'm also probably slightly more naive than you. So. Also, that is also a running theme in this relationship. Yeah. But okay. So overall thoughts, Deb, go. I mean, we've given some, but yeah, go ahead.
What overall thoughts? The most unique episode of Strike Back ever, and yet throughout the entire thing, there were so many bits of information, so many throwbacks, so many echoes of episodes from the past. Little tidbits of information, ways that things were done, even dialogue. Richmond's death was referenced multiple times throughout this in things that Mac would say. In fact, right, you know, when he was just figuring things out, this is what I've always wanted, a place like this, a time like this. You know, there were things that Richmond had said during her death scene that Mac said as well. It's like, wow, I mean, it was so unique, and yet there was so much there from 7 seasons previously. So it was just brilliant the way Jack did that. It's just a brilliantly written episode. So emotional, and yet so clever. So many hints throughout the season that this was coming. And we all knew it. I mean, and yet, it was like you just didn't want to see it, and it's so good, and it's just so devastating. And with the exception of the death, there was so much in this that I had wanted to see for Stonebridge. Like, it was like this is what I wanted. I wanted him to come home. I wanted him to deal with all this. I wanted to work out this PTSD but not die. And so I got that with Mac, got this amazing episode, but I didn't want him to die, even though I knew it was coming. And I, right from the start, I was like, oh God, he's actually dead. But God, I shouldn't have watched it this morning.
Yeah.
Because now I'm all emotional about it. I can't think. Okay. That's all I can say right now.
It is phenomenal. And this, you guys heard us last week say, this is, I think, in my opinion, maybe the best block ever in the series. And I think this, now you can see why I said that. I mean, it is different. It feels totally unique, but yet still Strike Back. And Warren Brown, my God, he was just incredible. I mean, and everybody at the end was incredible too. And that scene when the team finally gets there, I mean, Dan and Alin, you can feel, it feels real. And we have a brief, little statement from John Jones, who I interviewed with us last week, at the end of this, before we switch over to your Jack's Facts. And then Michael Wood also talked about it, both saying that this was unlike any normal death that they'd ever filmed before on a show, where it's like somebody dies and then everybody gets up and it's the end of the day, that this felt like it was really happening the whole day. And it was, and you see that on the whole team when they get there, and everybody brought their A game, but nobody more than Warren Brown. I mean, this was, my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's heartbreaking. And they've never killed a main character before in this way, obviously.
Right.
And so if they're going to, what a fucking amazing way to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this is Jack's best work. And Jamie Bamber said the same thing when we interviewed him, which you guys didn't hear because it would have been a major spoiler. He did say that when we talked to him at the beginning, that episode 6 is, and this is one of those episodes that it pisses me off that Cinemax shows don't get award attention, because this fucking episode deserves serious attention from people in the industry, and it won't get it, and that pisses me off. But oh my God. Okay, so favorite fight.
Me trying not to cry throughout the whole thing. That was my fight. Gosh, again, you look at this episode and all you can focus on are the emotions, and yet this episode did give us everything that Strike Back gives us in every episode, because there was a lot of action in it. I don't know. The shootout at the remains of the hospital was incredible. I mean, it was just this nonstop assault, and you could really feel that tension of just, I'm just trying to stay alive here. I don't know who to trust. I don't know, everything's just assaulting me at once. And it was such a just primal need to stay alive that, yeah, there was so much action in this, and yet you can't really focus on that. So.
Yeah. So I was gonna say in Afghanistan, when Mac kills the bad guy, and he's desperate, and he's a baby, and he's so he's so young, and he's so like naive, and he has to strangle that guy, and then he vomits afterwards, and that, because it was so brutal and so emotional, and it was sort of, we're used to Mac as we see him now,
right?
Not that he's unfeeling. He's not, frankly, Wyatt, who's sort of deadened to the killing, but he's efficient. He does it, he gets it done, and whatever. And then we see this like just gut-wrenching thing. So that was my pick. Okay, God. Ooh, keep it together. Okay, Deb, emotional moment.
Oh man, how do you pick just one? I mean, it's just a roller coaster of emotions from the start. Oh, it has to be that sob that Novin lets out at the end. I mean, I have a page of emotional moments written down, but I think that sob that you hear from Novin, when sort of Wyatt's kind of finally accepted, and she's just like just leaning on the wall, and everyone's crying, but she just lets out that sob.
Oh God, I'm so sorry, guys. I can't. Oh.
The worst.
Well, Jack, I hope if you're listening to this, I hope you're happy.
The worst ever, Jack.
So mine is when Warren is in the therapist's office and he finally realizes.
Yeah.
And right before we realize it, he's realized when she asks him, "What did you hear?" And it switches to him hearing Wyatt like, "Hold on," and seeing Warren start to choke up because he realizes they came for him, and then seeing the team so desperately charging in, trying to save him. Jesus Christ, I hate all of you. Yeah, so it was this like sort of beautiful, it's over, but they're all trying so hard, and that was it for me. Jesus Christ. Sorry.
Okay. I don't know what are we going to get in the next 4 episodes. It's so frightening.
Yeah. But we're not there yet. We got to talk about your what the fuck moment.
My wife is just, how could you do this to us, Jack? Yeah, I have that whole, I figured it all out. They'll come for you. When he's, saying that to Damachi, they'll come for you. You'll die alone.
Just a little finger
I
gun at her.
didn't die alone. You will die alone. They will come for you. Nothing will stop them. Again, exactly what Richmond said. So that was really emotional. But I think one moment that stood out for me was when he and the Taliban guy finally get back to his team, and he's like so relieved that God, we made it, and this guy helped me out, and then they take this guy, and he knows what's going to happen, and he briefly fights for him, but the look that guy gives him, and just the whole talk about the look in the eyes, that's your brain trying to figure out this, and everything flashing before you, and then another reference, we know that's really what's going on here. Mac trying to figure it all out, his brain trying to figure it all out. So many little what the fucks, but Yeah, my biggest is just, how could you do this to us, Jack Lothian?
Yeah.
I can't, how emotional this must have been to write. Wow.
Yeah.
Uh,
Uh,
it, not knowing what's coming for the rest of the season, this very much felt like saying goodbye to the series.
yeah. Yeah, this was. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about that again and again. We don't know where it's going. Yeah, I mean, I don't. My what the fuck is the same as yours. And to lose Mac with 4 episodes left, and that's huge. That's very. I mean, so those of you who listened to our preseason, Jack asked me to predict, and I said you were gonna kill Mac, and he wrote me later once we'd seen, and he said his response, internal response was, "God damn it!" But it was still fucking shocking as hell. So it didn't matter that was a prediction or that it's been leading up to this. It still was gut-wrenching and horrible, and obviously we're still crying about it. Okay, predictions for the rest of it. I don't know. They're all gonna die, and it's gonna be terrible, and and you know, it's the fucking end of the world. So that's my goddamn prediction for you guys. Deb.
Yeah. I don't want to make predictions because too many of our predictions come true, and all I'm thinking right now is no one's gonna live. That we're gonna get to the end and it's just gonna be Cheddars. I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, we don't know. We have no clue what the real end game in all of this is, and my prediction is, I have no idea where Jack's taking us on this.
Yeah.
You know, what really is the big thing that Zayev has planned, and is anyone going to live through it?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, so that's episode 6 for you guys. Basically, take away emotions.
Major emotions.
So next up, we got your Jack's Facts from fucking emotion killer Jack Lothian. Dan MacPherson.
Jack, we really do.
Director of photography Michael Wood, and of course Warren Brown. Woohoo!
You know, when the team come up, they kind of, as performers, you know, like I say, they're very tight. You know, just seeing this on the floor, because it was kind of real. We just did it for real, and Shana's amazing. She really is a wonderful woman, and you know, she had created the wound, and it just looked so tragic and awful. So when the team came up, when they could see this, and you know, I always have this thing of trying to keep the floor really quiet at times like this. So you know, so that there's a certain sort of, it's kind of weird because no one talks, and because people aren't talking, there's a strangeness to everything. And they came up the team, and they just couldn't help themselves really, and we just let them do it, you know. And we filmed it long, and we filmed it, you know, a few times, and there was just some wonderful moments in it. There's an amazing moment where, and by letting it run long, you know, when Novin just can't accept it, and when she's got a hand on the wall, and you know, Michael was great because I could communicate with Michael very quickly, and Steve, you know, and just literally by hand signals, you know, just move the camera there, whatever, because it's all handheld. And so we were just there at this event, is what it felt like for us, and that's what they gave us. So it's hugely planned, and you know, and the Shans and are doing such an enormous amount of work, but when it comes to it, it's almost like it's live. You know, we try and make it as live as possible. Yeah, and it was a real honor to be there for that. Actually, you know, that's all I would say about that. They were just at their best, I think.
We've got Overwatch. Jack's Facts coming in.
Okay, guys, we've stopped crying almost, and we're back with our Jack's Facts. So, all right. Episode 6 was originally going to be one set in real time, dealing with the fallout of a terror attack as the bad guys tried to escape a city in lockdown. But then I wrote 15 pages of Mac and his family and knew that this was a story I wanted to see. Although those originally 15 pages ended with Mac discovering the driver was none other than Omer Idrisi, which would have completely given the game away. Yeah,
okay.
we couldn't go with option 1 there, huh? No. All right.
If you go back, oh God, if you go back and look through earlier episodes, there are hints strewn about to Mac's fate. A skull on the wall behind him in episode 1, someone dressed as Death following him at the Venice Carnival. We wanted to lay some groundwork for what was going to happen without making it too obvious. Thanks.
Yeah, and of course, if you go back and look through this block, there's a huge little Easter eggs throughout the entire thing that you realize, at the end, oh yeah, that makes sense. Okay. The photos on the wall of the psychiatrist's office are photos from Strike Back sets from the past few seasons. We didn't want to make it too obvious, but it ended up being a bit obscure. Either way, they seem familiar to Mac, but he can't place why.
I have to go back and do some serious screenshot and zooming. Okay. In Afghanistan, Mac's commanding officer is none other than Chris Ryan, who of course wrote the original Strike Back book. The idea that Chris Ryan would show up and give one of the characters a telling off was too good to pass up on. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's
jerk,
cool.
But awesome.
His character was.
Yes, his character was.
But yeah, how fitting. I mean, wow, the guy who started it all. Okay. The building where Mac and the sniper hole up is the remains of a hospital in Zagreb called the Brestovac Sanatorium. Its story goes back to the late 19th century when a doctor fell in love with a beautiful stage actress called Lady Stram. His love was unrequited, and he only learned she had married someone else when he saw her name listed as Mrs. on a theater poster. However, when she fell sick with tuberculosis, he had the sanatorium built in 1909 to try and save her life, but she passed away in 1913. It also served as a military hospital during the First and Second Wars and has lain abandoned since the 1960s. Blood-stained ghosts have been spotted walking the corridors and the woods around it, both spirits of tuberculosis patients and soldiers, making it Strike Back's most haunted location yet. Ooh, creepiness.
Everyone pulled out all the stops on episode 6, with special mentions, I'm going to keep it together, for director John Jones and his DP Michael Woods and Stephen Worsley, the editor who stitched it all together beautifully. But none of this would have been possible without all the effort and work that Warren put into the story. As tough as it is, Jack, God damn it, why'd you do this? As tough as it is to say goodbye to Sergeant Thomas McAllister, we hope it's a fitting showcase for Warren's skills as an actor. It was. Stick around, Dan.
Oh God, we're losing it.
On me, back to the crib.
Hey, Meebers, we're back to talk to Wyatt about probably the most amazing and depressing episode of Strike Back ever. And I don't even want to say, what could Wyatt have done? I mean, all I can think is, why didn't you drive faster? This is why you shouldn't drive.
Oh, come on. Novan had a driven. We would have crashed. Coltrane would have got us lost. Chetri would have driven us into some cultural festival like she did last year, and we wouldn't have got there at all. The only reason we were even close was because Wyatt drove. Gosh, guys. All right, so this is a tough one.
Wow.
But as you can see, and as you guys haven't, I don't think at this point you've seen episode 7, but Wyatt literally has a chat with Novan and says, what if I'd driven faster? What if we run quicker up the stairs? What if we'd got there sooner? What if we were just a couple of seconds sooner? And so what you're saying about Wyatt is he's racking his brain. He's racked with guilt over all of that. And each one of Section 20 deal with it in their own way. This may have been Wyatt's fault. It may have been Wyatt's fault if you follow it all the way back to the very beginning, where had they got Lorik DeMarchi, or had he have stepped up and got McCluskey saved, or had any of the evolution of what got them to this point changed, then Mac could still be here. And Novan, we have this great chat together in the next episode. It's her fault. What if she had stopped him? What if she hadn't run off? But for all their trying to rationalize what they've done, how they could have changed things, nothing would have changed it. He was always a soldier. He was always going to put himself first. He was always going to put the mission first and put himself on the line for that mission. So this is a case where every single member of Section 20 blames themselves. And it's funny, if this is Wyatt's fault, Wyatt believes it's his fault.
Yeah.
But then so does Coltrane, and so does Novan, and so does Chetri. And they've failed. So I think if Wyatt wasn't driving, they wouldn't have even got close. So, and actually, I love there's that sequence as we're all raiding down that outdoor sort of corridor, and not a corridor, but the outdoor space, moving to the bottom of the building. And we did that 5 or 6 times. At the end of a massive week, I'd torn both my quads, that block in block 6, one after the other. So I tore one in 2 places. And I had about 3 or 4 weeks of physio on that. And then the next day, when that was healed, I tore the next one, the other quad, literally the next day. But because if you look at these episodes, there's so much running. There's so much running up and down stairs and up and down, trying to chase him. We're just running, in full kit in the height of a Croatian summer. But I just wanted Wyatt and that whole team. But he was like a rhino charging. He was just like big and sweaty and covered in blood and just screaming up there, like on this kind of brutal run up to try and get to his mate. And it's some of the work I'm most proud of this season, actually, of that kind of arrival into Mac. And we'll talk more about that when we get to the Daniel MacPherson Sergeant Wyatt version of the Sit Rep podcast coming later this season. Be sure to tune into that. But we'd worked really hard. Warren and I worked really hard on those final few days, our last scenes together, and even to the point where like I didn't want to see Warren that day, and everyone was going, "Where's Warren even here?" And I said to him, "I don't want to see you until the moment we burst in the door and find you." And so he'd deliberately gone into a separate makeup trailer. He'd entered the set in the building an hour or 2 early and stayed out of our way. So the first time we saw him was on the ground with prosthetics bleeding out, and we'd been sort of working up to this moment for about a month since we first read the scripts. So then those reactions that you see at the end of episode 6 are all just natural, visceral, and pretty spontaneous because John the director was like, just go for it, just go for it. We're not going to rehearse it too much. There's plenty of feeling, there's plenty of emotion there. Off you go. And so we did it that way. So maybe Warren's close-up was a little bit my fault because I was just like pouring sweat and tears down into his eyeballs while he was trying to look at me. Can't get me fucking eyes up before. Mate. Language Warren. A bit late. Yeah, we go more of this in depth, but look, as we discover, this one was no one's fault, but they pay the ultimate price for this one. And what a spectacular episode of Strike Back. And Warren Brown, I salute you as a friend. I salute you as a comrade, as a work colleague, but also just as an actor who got the best seat in the house to work opposite you for 3 years. To see him work, to see just how outstanding he is. He's inspirationally outstanding, little talented bastard. And he's so wonderful in these episodes. They are a fitting finale, episodes 5 and 6 for Warren and his skill level and his conviction and everything he brought to McAllister. He went out on an absolute triumphant high. Got nothing but love and gratitude for the ride that we went on.
Yeah, I'm going to give that to you, Wyatt. Not your fault.
We're not at Xville. Stay with us at the crib.
Welcome back, Meebers. And we are very, should I say, excited? I don't know. We're talking about Block 3, which was an amazing block. And we have an amazing guest today, the first time that we've had a director of photography on. And the poor guy gets to talk about the block that's probably going to go down as like the Oh my God, how could you do that to us, block? But it was an amazing block with amazing photography in it. So we're here to talk about that today, and we'd like to welcome our guest, Michael Wood, Director of Photography for Block 3 on Strike Back. Welcome.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Always happy to talk about those episodes.
Oh, they're phenomenal. I mean, as much as they hurt, I think they will be one of the best blocks in Strike Back history, period. And they feel like a little bubble where they still feel like Strike Back, but they also feel very different because they are so much more dramatic. The way it just is amazing. So before we get to that, though, what we like to do with guests with jobs that we haven't had on before is first just have a simple sort of, if you can explain to the fans what you do as a director of photography.
Okay, so as a director of photography, as the title says, I direct the photography, I'm in charge of the camera department, head of that department, but also under my umbrella is the grip and electrical department. I have a key grip who's in charge of the grip department and a gaffer in charge of the electrical department. But with the gaffer during recce's and stuff, we'll work out how we're going to light stuff and then obviously often change our mind on the day when things change. And the same, any camera movement, it's all done through the grip. So that's all under my jurisdiction. And then obviously I work with the other heads of department, makeup, costume, production designer to oversee, as all heads of department, the look of the project. Obviously this is slightly different as opposed to a feature film where you'd all come on together. Episodic TV drama, the director and DP come on for a block. In this case, 10 episodes, 5 blocks, 2 episodes a block. A director and DP come on, they do 5 weeks. So we did 3. While block 2 is shooting, we're doing our prep, and then John and I shoot ours, and at that stage, block 4 start their prep. So that's basically it. Often you'll work with, and I had a fantastic camera operator, Steve Murray. It's 2 cameras throughout the whole show, and very much a 2-camera show. But I love operating as well, and I love that rapport with the actors, and a lot of handheld in our episodes. So there's nothing nicer than having a camera on your shoulder and reacting with the actors. So that's what I do.
That's a lot.
Yeah, you might get that. That's a bit bad. You get that back to Twitter then. So, yeah.
So I'm wondering, were you a fan of the show before you got this job for this block? How much of it had you seen?
Can I be really honest?
Please.
Of course, yeah.
I hadn't heard of the show before this.
Okay.
Yeah, I expected I hadn't seen it, but I had.
I know.
But my reason for asking that is because you know, this is the only block of Strike Back you've done, and it's the most unique block of Strike Back that's ever been shot. And so I wonder, did Jack purposely bring in people who didn't have a relationship with the show already? Did you discuss that with him, or?
No, it was all, look, I'll be so, and no disrespect to Jack or Left Bank or any of the people who employed me. They go, he'd never even heard of the show. Sorry, guys, but I love it now. I've got to say, it was because obviously the director gets employed, so they employed John Jones, and once again, let's be honest, I had never worked with John before. He's got his regular guy. The last minute, his guy fell out, so I had the interview with John on the Wednesday, got offered the job on the Friday, flew on the Sunday for 12 weeks in Croatia. So it was just a series of wonderful serendipitous accidents that I'd just had a job cancelled, so I was available for John at that moment. So there was no particular reason why, I've never spoken to Jack or John about what it was about John's reel that they decide. Obviously, they always employ the director before the DP, what their connection was. But yeah, it was my first one with John. And as I say, I was absolutely, it was a joy with John because we both like shooting in a similar style, quite loose, handheld, right in amongst it with the actors. And as I say, Jack gifted us with the most incredible scripts, and obviously 6 it's something different for Strike Back, and as you say, unfortunately it broke a lot of your hearts. At whichever stage during 6 you realised your hearts had been broken. which I'll ask you in a bit. So yeah, it was serendipitous life that blessed me and Jack and Nula and John and everyone coming together to make those two episodes.
They are really phenomenal, and one of the reasons we wanted to talk to you is because we had done our preseason with Jack. We kind of talked about who we wanted to talk to, any suggestions he had, and he brought you up and said that you were the most physical director of photography he had ever seen. The way you are with a camera, he said, was so much more just getting in there than he had ever seen before. And so I'm wondering sort of like kind of where you see your style having come from.
It's interesting. So I've been a DP director of photography for 24 years. Most of my career started in commercials. I did commercials for probably the first 15. You learn lighting phenomenally well. You don't necessarily learn to tell a story with the camera. I then I moved back to the UK, I'm trying to keep you short. I started doing some second unit with a very famous cinematographer, Anthony Dobmantle. I did 4 films with him, Rush, Heart of the Sea, Ron Howard's films and a couple of others. And Anthony, I had never seen a director of photography work with the camera and tell a story with the camera like Anthony. He's on another level from what I've experienced. And that was 24 years of doing this. And there's another, one of my favourite DPs of all time, a guy called Harris Savides, who unfortunately passed away quite a few years ago now, far too young, but he had a sea change in the way he works, and it's just you suddenly find your voice, you find your style, and also I have to, I'm getting too old for this, but I keep fit. I do a lot of yoga because for me to work with that camera, I always talk about the bubble, which is that thing and it's an absolutely amazing thing, particularly on an action show and working with those guys. I don't want to be back quite static on a long lens. I want to be right in their faces. And if I'm working with, fit guys and girls in section 20, do you know what I mean? Apart from what they've done before, they keep fit for that. So you've got to be very interactive. Thankfully, we all got on and had a ball as well, which was nice. So they didn't mind me in their face with the camera. But to me, the physicality of operating, it's like I sort of mastered lighting early on because of commercials, and obviously I'm still obsessed with lighting. But to me, the more I can just get rid of everything and just be in the actor's face with the camera, and they either love it or hate it. Some hate it. Thankfully, these guys all loved it. But the physicality, I got to say, I get off on it. And if there's actors running around and doing stuff, I just love it. And as I say, I try and keep agile with the yoga. So if someone, a lot of the time, if someone's standing and they drop down, I've got to be able to drop down with them. And that's just, I enjoy it. It's fun. Do you know what I mean? The operating is fun. I mean, the reality is everyone thinks, a lot of filmmaking isn't fun because there's a lot of stress and a lot of pressure and a lot of stuff going on. But to me, operating in that mode is fun, and I just absolutely relish it. So bring it on. But yeah, I'm glad Jack appreciated it because, that was what as I say, I didn't know the show, but then I started watching it and I thought, oh my God, this we can get so physical with this. You know what I mean? It's like, it's designed for it. So it's fantastic. I'd never shot a show like that before and I just absolutely loved it. It's breath of fresh air.
You got a block that has 2 pretty distinct episodes in it, which is unusual. You have episode 5, which is a fairly typical Strike Back episode, lots of action, lots of strike backy stuff. And then you have episode 6, which has everything packed into it and stuff that we've never seen before. I'm wondering for episodes how you decided on the ultimate look for that episode. Was that a sit down with Jack and with John, the director, to decide, because it really is all over the place. You've got the battle scenes, which are handheld and, really frantic. And then you have that just peaceful, sort of otherworldly setting with the family and just everyday life, and so very different. How did you guys decide where all of that was going to land?
I mean, a lot of it I guess a lot of it is and obviously I'm not privy to a lot of the conversations John had with Jack, either in prep or as that script was developing. Obviously, I'm off a lot of the time, off doing things in prep, and John might be speaking to Christian, our block producer, or Jack and stuff. I mean, it's sort of, we knew we had to shoot. Nothing wrong with it, but in the schedule we had to shoot out the Afghanistan stuff first. And John and I spent a lot of time. I mean, there's an interesting thing as well. You sort of, and we joked about it. Well, we didn't laugh all the time, but it's often like you go into a forest type environment and you pick a really good tree, and then everyone goes, but those trees much closer to the base look the same as these trees. There's a lot of this sort of stuff going on. You're trying to work out, and there's a really steep hill, and that the sanatorium. So we knew we had to shoot that first. So John and I said, in relation to our block and what we were shooting, we recorded that on our own, apart from with the guys, we recorded it a lot on our own as well. And we just said, okay, we've got to hit the ground running as a unit and as a John and me team. And it was our first time together. So we knew we were shooting Afghanistan first. And we said, we both love in the hand. And I said, to me, it's so much more effective if I can be on someone's 2.5 feet away from someone's face. When they're talking, you almost get the spittle. Do you know what I mean? It's like, that becomes visceral. So we knew we wanted to start with that. Then obviously it gets a bit quieter as they get into the sanatorium, but then it kicks off again big time as it would in Strike Back. So we knew that. And then I guess, and as I say, it's once I've finished rambling, it'll be a question for you. At what stage, and I say this having listened to your Jack, that one of you saw Mac's demise before the series started. I can't remember who saw it, but how it fell through 6. So I mean, I guess we often referenced in our mind, we referenced the Truman Show, and as I say, we didn't go back and look at it, but it was that sense that it's, and that's why we spent a lot of time looking for that row of houses, and we saw some and went, oh, almost, and you suddenly saw that row of identical ones, no real fences and stuff out the front. Oh, it's fantastic. It's got a real look to it. And it's Truman Show. It's a fake world, which obviously it'd be much easier to find a Truman Show style environment in America with the white picket fences and stuff. It's a lot harder in Zagreb. So we were really happy with that. And we really wanted it, obviously, to just have that idyllic feel. And there was an intimacy that we really enjoyed with that. It was interesting in the psychologists. We sort of ummed and ahed, and then we saw that place, which is actually an old, I think it's part of Tito's old summer house or something out there, you know, from the days of Yugoslavia. Mm-hmm. And it's just this most incredible 70s architecture. And we'd sort of planned this set and stuff, and we just went in there with the floor and everything. And John and I just, we got to do it here. And then we showed Jack, and Jack loved it. And we all knew, we were all a bit, it's not Strike Back, but let's be bold and let's go for it. And I think it's absolutely perfect. I mean, it's another world. And so we knew that was going to be a lot calmer. I mean, we did do a bit more static. There's handheld in there as well, but obviously it's two people having a conversation. So it sort of lent itself to that. But I guess, and part of it was to sell, and as I say, to try and pull the energy back a bit from the camera for that stuff. So it becomes more, and you know, what a performance from Warren with all that, particularly in the psychologists. That's fantastic with the two of them. So out of curiosity, what stage did you work it out that?
Very different stages. So
interesting question,
Cal. So I fully bought into it. I have I wrote Jack. I was like, all my notes are like, they're gaslighting him. Like, the therapist is in on it. I was like, This kid is way too old. I don't understand the timeline. I said, I'm really sorry. I doubted Jack. I was like, man, he did not figure out the timeline right, because I don't understand how his kid is so old. And so I didn't get it until like the very end. And yeah, I fully was gullible the whole way through, even though I was the one that at the very, like, our preseason was like, I think Mac's going to die.
I wasn't sure which of you had picked up on it. I saw that, and I could hear Jack. I could hear him silently going.
Yeah, he wrote me and said he literally went, God damn it.
Like, oh.
Yeah.
Well, we both sent Jack pictures of our notes from episode 6. And so Kelsey had this page full of notes and notes and notes and notes. My notes were, Ep 6, written by Jack, opened right into credits. That's strange. Oh fuck, he's really dead. No. And that was my that was my note.
My God, okay.
I figured it out right away.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like, no, this is too weird. Oh fuck, he's really dead.
Oh,
Which
yeah.
if you listen to the podcast at all, you know that's really typical of the way that we see the show all the time.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
oh god. But and then I stopped taking notes because I thought I just want to be in this because it's gonna be so good. And it was fantastic.
Yeah. And obviously a lot of it, sorry, jumping back to that, I'm just thinking about the episode now, and obviously they all have a drink at the end and that, a lot of it as well, we sort of knew where we had to be and we'd sort of scheduled around the sun going down, but you don't know if it's going to come out. You don't know where you're going to be in the schedule when you get there. And it's just, so much of it is happy accidents. The guys are all there having they had their drink and the sun's going down behind them. It was all beautiful and had a certain significance to it. So, a lot of it's luck as well, really, and there is a lot of it you make up on the day. That was the gist behind it. But as I say, for me, I certainly wanted to fight hard for that psychologist's office because it just felt. I'd never been into a location. It was so stuck in the 70s. It was just gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's just a spectacular piece of architecture. Yeah.
It definitely felt different. It stood out. It didn't sing out the right way to me, apparently, but it was great.
Angry writing, Jack.
So I'm wondering if I know we're talking mostly episode 6, but one of my favorite scenes I wanted to ask you about in episode 5 when Mac is questioning Mahir and there's these amazing close-ups going back and forth between the two of them while they're interrogating and that like immediately for me that was like the first thing I said, this is different from Strike Back because this is not Strike Back doesn't do that a lot. I mean, even when you're getting these emotional beats, they're not right up in the face. It was really incredible. And so I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about shooting those scenes.
I can. I mean, first up, so I got going back to what we said as well. Obviously, the crew on these shows go the whole way through. Not poor bastards, but Thai bastards. They go the whole way through, and then the new director and DP come on. They've had their 5 weeks of prep, which you're a bit relaxed while they've just been slogging away, and then you come on Monday morning and go, "Okay, guys, let's go," and they're going, "Oh my god." New energetic director and DP. The crew are amazing, but obviously the thing I've always operated. 24 years I've been doing this, and as Jack said, I'm energetic with the camera, and I love operating, and it's my thing. This was the first time I've gone onto a show. Steve Murray, the A camera operator, has been doing this for many seasons. He is the most wonderful man, but he is the most incredible operator as well, and he was such a joy to work with. And I knew he was a real asset when I came on board, and he had an incredible rapport with the actors, with the whole team and with the crew. So he was a blessing. So Steve and I, it was 2 cameras throughout, and Steve and I got on. And any time, if Steve had to operate something, he was absolutely in sync straight away and loved what we were doing. But John, the director, and I, we always knew we wanted to be handheld, wider lenses. A lot of these, I'm not saying about Strike Back, but a lot of shows do. And it's often because you're trying to get multi-cameras on. So everyone comes back on a longer lens. And we didn't want to do that. We wanted to be in their face. And John kept saying to me, John is a lot of directors basically leave you to it. They'll work with the actors, block the scene, but then they'll say, well, you shoot it however you want. John's very much, no, we're here. We work on it together, but he's very specific about his coverage of the scene. And a lot of that stuff, I'll put a lens on and, I'll sit down and find a nice angle quite close. And John just goes, closer, get in there. And until you're like there.
Yeah.
Or whatever, and he's going, okay. And then a lot of the time as well, because you're 2 cameras, a lot of the reason you come back on lenses, you've got 2 people chatting. The only way you can you physically can't get 2 operators in as well, unless you both go further back on longer lenses. So a lot of that stuff, we had to either break up and just say, you know what, to shoot this on the lenses we want to shoot on, we'll make the date, not a problem. But we might have to break it up and shoot 1 camera because we just can't physically get a reverse on on the other guy while someone's on one guy. So, but yeah, I mean, it's just for me something. And John feels the same. Something magical happens when you're in someone's face. You're almost making them uncomfortable with the camera. The other thing that happens is often you do get very close to the actor you're working, not the one you're shooting, the one you're next to. Because what happens is you physically come in that close with the camera, the eye line tends to go wider because there's the bulk of you in the camera. But you get more intimacy the closer they get. So normally I've got an actor and me hanging over, he's hanging over my camera, I'm hanging over them, and we all get to know each other very well. But to me, yeah, as I say, when I'm in there, if I can feel the spittle and I feel the hairs on my arms go on that big close up, the actors can take it, they can do it. And I think they rise to the occasion when someone's running around with them and the camera's right in their face. I think they love it too, really. So yeah, that was a fabulous scene, and once again, it was it's a genuine. I don't think we didn't build any sets. It was a genuine garage that bought out for a day, and it was just a really wonderful interrogation scene.
As interrogation scenes go.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful one. We've been blessed this season with a number of long shots of oneers, and you got to do one with Mac going through the building in episode 5. Can you talk about that a little bit?
That was a fabulous. Well, once again, it was a fabulous. Jack knew he wanted to do it. That the original thing, it was in the script from day one. Continuous. We knew we had to break it up and hide the wipes, but so that was in there. And Jack had always knew he wanted to do the drone shot to bury the establisher in effect in the middle. So the first thing, John and I, we went out to that location a lot and started to work it out. We knew we had to shoot it single camera. So Steve, having said I love operating, Steve operated the whole of that, and I was pulling the iris on a remote iris. And we knew we had to bury the drone into it. And there's probably, throughout the whole thing, I don't know, there's probably a dozen wipes or cuts in it. Steve is fantastic about whipping off and whipping on. He'll always find something, and obviously there's often a jihadi to whip off to or whatever, and those are all cut. Steve buried all those beautifully. So, and then obviously we knew the initial drone, we could do a very gentle one coming up and bury that, and we knew the one coming back with pace was always going to be tough. So we had some extra set pieces made and just about managed to get away with the coming back in. But, as far as so we spent a lot of time orchestrating out there as well with Paul Bidis, military advisor, and just, okay, where would they be? And, obviously a lot of time was spent orchestrating that. And even on the day before we started shooting, we spent a lot of time rehearsing it. And then obviously as he goes into it, we're then in another building. It's actually a separate building where we're in. Once again, it was the old Yugoslav Communist Party headquarters where the staircase is and where Mac's demise occurs. So from that point of view, for me, it was pretty easy. It was Steve doing it. I mean, I had to put a lot of the lighting in for the corridor to make it a bit more interesting, and the stairwell up. And I sort of, no one would really know, but it was part of my modus operandi. I knew I wanted to use ugly tubes, ugly blue-green colour, but I wanted to get, obviously, probably being a bit of a wanker, but I knew that the corridor where Mac gets it, and I introduced an orange light, I think one floor below, or just when they get to that one. For me, we'd had the blue light all the way up, and it was the two. In that corridor, I wanted to set up the choices of his life. One side's life, one side's death. That was the orange and the blue. That was the significance for me. Obviously, it looked cool as well, so it was good. But that was the thing. To me, he was in the corridor between life and death. And which way is he going to go? How he goes. So, unfortunately, wrong way. That was the significance of that. But yeah, as I say, I relied heavily on Steve, who is also incredibly athletic, to basically operate that whole thing. And he just worked out all the points. And Steve is incredible, from way ahead of my skill level from that part of an operator, saying, well, if we just move that to there and that there, then I can get to there and I can whip to there. That's all Steve. You should speak to Steve at some stage. He'll ramble even more than me. But I don't know how many episodes. I don't know how many. I think Steve's done quite a few seasons. But yeah, he was on the show. But no, that was operating wise, that's all Steve. And then the drone guys did a fantastic job because we were very specific. You've got to get from there to there and back and establish it in 20 seconds or whatever. And you go, oh, that's really fast. It's like, you've got to do it. Rehearse. And they did. It was a beautiful comeback in them. And obviously, as ever, Warren just knocked it out of the park. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah,
which made it, to me, I watched it back. We had a screening. There's like a cast and crew screening of a couple of episodes, and we showed 6, but obviously they showed just one of them, but they showed that whole part of 5 leading up to that. And it's just like, so you knew what you're into.
Yeah.
Everyone's on the top of their game. It feels good. It's a nice feeling, and it worked a treat, I thought. And I just realised, obviously I shot it, but I was just right there, and I absolutely believed that was Matt going through that journey. So it was a joy. And I think it's a very effective, one. Cheated one.
Yeah. It is. And like I said, these 2 episodes it makes me nervous for what's to come. Because this is so good. And I'm like, oh, I don't know what's coming next. But can you talk a little bit about, you've so much experience in how Strike Back was different from other jobs like this you've done before?
What is it different? Yeah, basically, a lot of the stuff, having been doing it for 24 years, I've experienced a lot of the elements that you might do on a show like Strike Back, multi-camera, action sequences. But I've never done a show where every day, virtually every scene, there's guns going off, explosions, just so commonplace on a show. And so there's a bit of a learning curve for me there with where I'm used to running into scenes and stuff, and people would be pulling you back because stuff still comes out on blanks and stuff, and there's still a lot of safety involved. So that was an education for me, and letting people know what I was doing. Whereas I say, I'm used to running in and around on a wider lens. So that was going on, but otherwise most stuff I've sort of encountered before, to be honest, But it was the first time it had all come together in one show like that. So that was good.
Okay, I think we need to talk about the scene that we never wanted to have to talk about, and that's the actual Max death scene and how beautiful that was. It was torturous, and it was I've watched it I don't know how many times now, and I'm bawling every time.
I was going to ask if you shed a tear, and there you go, you were bawling. Excellent. Jack will be happy.
Absolutely bawling. But this whole block was just brilliant, and especially with all the Easter eggs planted and the way that the pieces come together, and then Max just trying to hang on, one more breath. They'll get here. And you can't survive a wound like that without surgery, basically. Yeah. And so it's coming, but you're sort of dying along with him with that just next breath. And then they show up, and it's just horrible. Mm. And there's just so many beautiful close-ups on the team as they're experiencing this. And can you talk more about how you all decided to shoot that scene with it being so up close and personal? And how many times did you have to shoot that? Because man, was that emotional for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we sort of, and I suppose I'm trying to think now of the schedule. It's towards the end of our fight. You shoot for 5 weeks. It was certainly over halfway. It was towards the end. We all had a good rapport. We all knew it was coming up. Everyone was used to me being right in their faces by then. It was interesting. What was interesting as well is how emotional it was on set, which a lot of the time it isn't. It's all very matter of fact because everything's going on, and it's like, you lie there, you die. It's a bit like that. So everyone was very emotional. So that really added to it. And I'm trying to think of the sequence because obviously it's last summer now when we shot it, but we obviously did all Max stuff, and we'd spoken about it in relation to the one that Max's journey was really slow, but obviously the team are just flying in, and I think you get you repeat a lot of the same locations, but the speed with which they're going up, I think, worked. You get a real sense of adrenaline going as you're coming in with them. But the stuff, the actual moment when the team are there, I mean, I think someone might say you're dreaming, but I think we really shot that with the guys there trying to save him. Me and Steve, we probably did it in about half an hour. It was really quite quick because, they just came in and they were trying to save Mac. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so you just sort of, Steve and I'd keep getting in his way and he'd get in my way and we'd kick each other and we'd find another shot. But other than V, who was off to the side, we could nail moments on Dan and Ali. It was easy to quit for the two of us to just get right in there and just let him go through it. And so I think we pretty much run that sequence where they're trying to save him, as I say, other than V, which we did as a separate thing as she was standing up. I think we just run it with them 2, maybe 3 times, and Steve and I just stole shots. And as I say, it was strange. It was an emotional, obviously for them more so because. But it was a very emotional thing. And as for Mac, we had, I know you had Sean on, obviously, and it's funny listening to her one the other day, as ever, they plan all the stuff, and then we say, oh, we're behind. You got 2 minutes, just give us something, just give us blood. She's worked out these beautiful things. So as I say, but it was a nice, hefty wound. And so that one took a bit more. It took a bit longer working with Warren on that one because it was very precise about we had to get him down there and then get that all rigged up and the blood coming out. We used another thing just in relation to anyone we used a lens called a lens baby as well for I'm trying to think which bits, but a lot of it is sort of out of focusy and quite warpy, particularly when he's seeing to the yellow car and that. So we had a lens baby, which is it's like a very cheap plasticky stills one that's all a bit warpy. So a lot of that was for Mac's POV and, to suggest that he's going slightly otherworldly. His view of the yellow car through the bicycle and stuff on the floor was all done with that lens.
It is very emotional. We talked to Dan briefly and he was talking about how emotional it was and not wanting to see Warren all day on set until it was time to go, and he said he felt like he messed up Warren's close-ups because he was like sweating and crying into Warren's face.
It was quite, as I say, there was a real, and a lot of the time you're on something and before the camera rolls and there'll be other scenes when it's like that with those actors. There'll be other, you'll be on a show and before the cameras roll, literally as the clapperboard's going on, you're laughing and joking with the actor, bang, they turn it on, they're on, they finish, you have a joke about something. That happens all the time. It wasn't like that on that day. There was an air of death on that day. And it was quite interesting. And so they really, as you say, they avoided each other and it felt like that moment when they came up the stairs, particularly the first time they did it. They were coming in, and Steve and I just were really on the first one. We'd had a walkthrough, but Steve and I were really just, standing by to capture what happened. To be honest, so it was a strangely remarkable, strangely emotional day. Because as I say, a lot of the time those things aren't. You're just doing your job. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right there, and he was certainly dripping all over Warren and stuff. Disgusting. So he felt it. And so we did all that, and then we went, oh yeah, V's over here. V, we got a shoot. Sorry, V. We gave you a beautiful shot, but and she was. I mean, so partly lighting wise for me, she was the only one who was predominantly lit by the orange on the other side of the corridor. If Mac had chosen the life side of the corridor. So, and then we cleaned up on V, and that was it. So, And once again, as I say, as a cameraman, you can only shoot what's in front of the camera. So you present it with a fantastic location, an amazing cast doing amazing performance. Just go, what, just give me a camera on my shoulder and let's shoot it. I mean, really, a lot of the time, that's how you approach it, and it sort of works.
I'm emotional again.
That's how I feel.
I rewatched it, of course, this morning, so I'm crying an hour before we're recording this, and now I want to cry again. And I told Jack that, and I know you I think you said you haven't watched the rest of the series, but I told Jack that episode 6 was the episode I always wanted for Michael Stonebridge, except for the whole dying and the things. I wanted him to come home. I wanted him to work through his PTSD. I wanted him to have that episode, but please don't kill him.
No, exactly. And just sort of in relation to that, and that, jumping around, just that stuff we shot inside the house, talking about getting into the zone, the PTSD moment with Warren and the guys inside the house. I mean, once again, that was so raw shooting it. I mean, it was when obviously it's scripted that his wife comes down, he throws the beer bottle, that's all scripted, but that moment and when Warren goes against the wall and stuff, and that real pain and trauma comes out, that's just all ad-lib. And once again, Steve and I were just on hand to capture the magic that was happening. So, and that was very emotional as well. I mean, that whole scene and the guys, once again, they're all in the zone, but that moment when Warren's against the wall and stuff, it's just like, it was heartbreaking filming it, because it was such a vet's PTSD experience,
Yeah. Warren, I mean, these 2 episodes, I don't think he'd had the opportunity for some really meaty emotional stuff the last 2 seasons, and boy, they definitely made up for that, because phenomenal.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. And, huge respect to John, the director, as well, who I probably haven't spoken about enough because he's amazing. John and Warren just, they challenged each other. But the way they got to where they needed to be for Warren's performance and John's direction was incredible. It really was. I mean, between them, they just absolutely knocked it out of the park. And it was definitely a journey. And it was a journey that we all witnessed as a crew. But a lot of the time, it's just the 2 of them getting to that place. And it was breathtaking. To me, I was blown away by it when they got there each time, and it was very emotional. But it was certainly a journey for the 2 of them. And as I say, it's what a so obviously it's always a shame when your character gets killed off, but what a couple of episodes for Warren, really. Christ. I mean, it's just like, that's phenomenal, and he did an incredible job. So it was a joy. It's funny, I worked with Warren once on a pilot we shot ages ago. So he's like, I recognise you. But I hadn't seen him since. Very different, very light-hearted pilot comedy. And it was fantastic getting to see him really go through his paces there. And absolutely kill it. It's fantastic.
So in the beginning of this, I had mentioned how this block just has a different feel to it. And as someone not in the industry, it's hard to sort of put a name to that other than knowing it when I see it. That it just, you feel very different than you do in like almost any other Strike Back episode that we've watched. Can you talk a little bit about your goal going in and how you created that, what you were going for?
Yes. Yeah. Good question. It's what I sort of touched on earlier was the reality is I'd never seen Strike Back before. So when this came up and we spoke about it, it was very last minute with me and John. We were suddenly, I think I interviewed, and then less than a week later, I was definitely over there. So I went on a crash course of watching Strike Back, a few very early episodes, but really solidly watching the previous seasons with these guys, this team. I loved it. It was fantastic. It was a fantastic show, and a lot of incredible shows shot by some incredible cinematographers. But John and I sort of spoke about it, and what we sort of felt was that the thing we wanted to get across, which is we kind of felt is good for us as how we like to work, but also good for an audience and good for an actors, is to observe Section 20 less and make the camera a part of Section 20, which sort of, as I say, John and I had never worked before. It was just thankfully a match made in heaven that we both like shooting the same way. So you've obviously got to always step back. You've got to see a scene. You've got to see a location. You've got to understand the geography, what's going on. But every single opportunity, when it arose, it was all about getting the camera right in their faces. And it's sort of, and so, if Section 20 deploy, if Mac moves, I move with him. If Novin Wyatt, if something is happening, and I don't necessarily, obviously you block the scene, but I don't really know how they're going to play it. and it changes a bit. And it's all about just moving with them and being right in their faces. And I think I said before, it's about, for me as an operator, I like to be so close. Obviously, it's a bit different at the moment, but I like to feel their spit or hit my knuckles when stuff's happening. So that was the sort of thing. I mean, in simplistic terms, it was, let's get the camera a part of Section 20 so that, you know, I move with them, which is also part of, which I think Jack responded to, the physicality of my camera. And when I say my camera, Steve Murray, Mr. Strike Back, who was operating the other camera, we just move with the team. So that's kind of what it is. And as I say, it's partly, you know, I loved it that John and I were on the same page with that. But that's how I like to work. So it's also very selfish. I mean, you know, I'll say straight up, I'm a bit of an actor groupie. It's why we do this job, you know. To be that close to an actor doing something incredible and the hairs on your arms stand up, it's only when you can feel their breath hitting you that it's an incredible experience. So, you know, it's also a very selfish reason why I like shooting like that, because I get off on it too. But that was it in simplistic terms. And as I say, that's why I try and keep really fit, particularly if you know, you want to keep up with Warren and Dan and Alan and stuff, you know, you've got to be fit. It's a physical experience, but, you know, and so it's, and obviously everyone responded to it. Jack really responded to what we were trying to do, and it's, and ultimately you're, you know, you just want everyone to get off on what you're doing, from the producers, the showrunner, the directors, the actors. They loved it. I think they loved having me in their face. So probably not all the time. They probably hated it some of the time and I get in their way. But, you know, there's a good rapport. And then ultimately, the thing is, the audience, you know, you two responded to it. It worked. Do you know what I mean? It's like you felt that. You felt you were in there with them, which we can only give to you by us putting the camera in there with them, really. It's the long answer.
I'm so emotional. I can't really speak. These really were just incredibly unique episodes in a very unique block, and just one hell of a job. But it's also a part of the long journey that is Strike Back. I mean, this has been an 8-year journey. And we like to close each episode with a question that I got from Philip Winchester at one point on a different interview, and asking him, you know, what it is that he likes to know about people working on Strike Back, because it is a journey. It's a rough journey. A lot of times you're really in the thick of it with each other, but then you come out at the other end and you know, it was so amazing that you see it all through rose tinted glasses. So we like to ask people his favorite question to ask people, which is, what were your highs for this block and what were your lows for this block?
The low is definitely probably, I've got to say, and it was worth it in the end because it's an incredible scene. The low for me, I reckon the worst day on set I've had in 24 years was that shootout in the underground car park. It was horrendous. We were 5 stories underground. I was down there for 10 hours. I didn't leave it once. I didn't even have that's the first time in 24 years I didn't even leave set to have a wee.
Wow. Oh my.
And it was.
Can you just weed on set? I mean, it is Strike Back. You're going to speak right there.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, I was peeing all over the place. Didn't leave set. I didn't say that. It was horrendous. It was humid. It was the noise. No one could hear each other properly. Anytime a gun went off, it would ricochet. Sound would ricochet around the place. It was so hostile. Everyone was getting so angry down there. And then obviously, just when you think you're done, the big gun comes out and then the water comes down. And it's just like, now we're wet as well. I can't think of a day in my life when I've wanted a day to end as much as that one. And we all came out of there going, so that's why you don't shoot in underground car parks. You shoot normal car parks and tent it out or whatever. It was just horrible. And everyone was really, really agitated. So that was my worst day. That was horrible. And then, you know, a lot of the stuff you get on a lot of jobs, it's like you had your great plans, but then all of a sudden things have gone wrong, whatever. You know, you've got 45 minutes left to shoot a scene, and so that's always hard. But that can also be the good thing when you've achieved it. I mean, I think most of my good moments, I mean, I'm sure most of my good moments really are when I see it. As I say, you definitely. I did another job with John, and I saw him yesterday. We were in the grade for it yesterday, and we still talk so fondly. And I'm not just saying this because you're Strike Back and Jack's listening. We talk so strongly, so favourably about our, and it's not just looking at Ray's team like, oh my God, that was so much fun. And it really, because it often isn't fun. And it really was a lot of fun. And being in Zagreb and Croatia was a lot of fun, and the guys were all fantastic. But I think most of my good moments, other than where at the end of a day when you think, oh my God, we did some good shit today. Most of my good moments are when I see it edited and I see it work, to be honest, as opposed to on the shooting, where in the thick of the firefight, metaphorically and literally in Strike Back's case, you can't see the wood for the trees, but then you see it back and you see it all works, and you go, oh, fantastic, we did a good job. And so those are the highlights. I mean, it is nice, those moments when you are doing something, and it's a case, we've spoken about two of them, the PTSD in his house and the scene in the corridor when Mac dies, when you sort of feel like you're almost just shooting cinema verite, you're just documentary. That's what it starts to feel like. That's pretty special. And when you've got the camera on your shoulder, you get lots of special moments because you're creating that moment. Everyone can see it at the same time. It's not like film pre-video tap where no one can see it except the operator. Everyone can see it, but you're making that frame, and this incredible stuff's happening. And so you get those good moments quite often.
On me, back to the crib.
All right, guys, we are really excited. This is the one you have been waiting for 2 years, us too. And we are so excited to have none other than the guy who just died, playing Sergeant Thomas McAllister. Yeah. Warren Brown, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. I've just died. Cue sad music.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of crying. We'll try to get over it.
That's sad.
Background music.
That's enough of that.
Well, one of the things we like to have, kind of like our interviews that we're doing with like sort of lesser known people, is explain what you do on Strike Back.
Hello, I'm Warren Brown, and I play Sergeant. I used to play Sergeant McAllister on Strike Back. Thank you for having me, ladies. Thank you for your patience. I know we were trying to do this last year, but I was running around the world like a bloody idiot, trying to put food on the table to feed me kids. I've got no kids, but I was just trying to put food on the table. But we finally made it happen, so we're all good. And just in the nick of time.
Just in the nick of time. Well, thank you so much. Okay, so honestly, this block and episode 6 in particular, I think is probably Jack's best work, some of your best work. It's phenomenal. It is my favorite episode of the entire series. It stands alone. It's incredible. All of the accolades. So for you, I'm interested, when did you find out what was going to happen, and how did you feel about how everything was going to go down?
Well, thank you for your very kind words. Going into a final season, and yeah, you're going to have to bump someone off, aren't you? And I'm pretty good at getting bumped off in show. So, yeah, I knew at the beginning, but as ever with Strike Back, we didn't have the scripts, or we didn't have any details, or I didn't really know how it was going to be handled right at the beginning. But, I'm like, all right, well, we'll see. I had a chat with Jack when we first got to Croatia, and he kind of explained a little bit of an idea that he had, and he was like, well, don't worry, once you go, there'll be like a flashback in the next episode. And I was like, a flashback, like 3 minutes that'll be cut out because the episode will be too long. And I think actually, by his own admittance, having spoken to him about it at length before we got cracking with it, because obviously he's writing it while we're filming the first couple of blocks, so we didn't have any details until like quite soon before we started shooting block 3. But I think he got a bit carried away with his flashback, and it turned into like not just a 3-minute flashback. I think it's a bloody 17-minute flashback. So I'm like, bonus, you're not cutting that out. And yeah, he really went off on one, and I think we really went off on what's kind of expected of a Strike Back episode. But when I did get to read the scripts for 5 and 6, and actually we happened to read them, myself, Dan and Alin. We were at my place and we'd had the scripts and we kind of all read it together. And man, I was blown away. I was absolutely blown away. I thought the writing was incredible. It's unlike any other Strike Back episode, you know, particularly 6. I think was like a real bloody psychological thriller. But I still felt, and having seen it, you know, it's unlike any other Strike Back episode. But I feel like the Strike Back DNA and the Strike Back ingredients are all over it. So it's not, you know, hopefully our fans are invested in us now for this 3 seasons, so they don't mind going off piste a little bit. But yeah, no, it was good, and we, like I say, we were all. I was speechless. It was brilliant. One of us had a towel over their heads and was in tears. I won't say who that was, but there was only a Lynn with a towel over her head. But no, it was it was emotional, and you know what, for us 3 as well, having spent 3 seasons on it, and just, you know, the whole gang, you know, so many recurring, and it was emotional anyway, kind of going into a final season knowing that this is it, you know, and it's a bit bittersweet. You I think, as I said before, going into it knowing it's the last one, I feel like the writing can be so much more bolder. And really want to go out with a bang and really just leave nothing on the field. And I really think we've done that. But also for us, we were also saying goodbye to the show and saying goodbye to each other. So kind of all throughout that episode, there was so much that we kind of brought to it for free, you know, because there's like a blurred line with all of us now between like the characters and us as people and as mates and as colleagues. So there was kind of so much going in to tap into. And then we had, you know, an incredible script, amazing director with John Jones. You know, the whole team throughout Strike Back is brilliant anyway. But I was made up that it all just kind of clicked into place. I hadn't worked with John before. He hadn't done the show before, but he was brilliant. And we sat down before we got shooting and, you know, talked in depth about it because, again, we want to, you know, really do a good job and serve these scripts. And, you know, the whole team, as usual, the usual heroes of the show. But, you know, as I say, with John Jones joining it, having never done it before. Michael Wood, who I think has just been on before me.
Yeah.
Who was incredible. Yeah, that's it. That's the end of Mac. Mac. Oh, God, I'm going to have a little drink for Mac out of my Strike Back.
Look at all this merch. Dang it, we've been talking about this show for 2 years and we've not gotten any merch. What's up, HBO?
Myself. I stole this myself from HBO 2 years ago.
Nice.
I'll tell you what I have got as well, and this is absolutely a promise, and no one can see this, so no one knows what the chuff I'm on about, but what I have got right next to me, and I didn't even put it there thinking I was doing this, it's just there because my house is a shit tip at the minute. But I stole the clapperboard also, and that's the clapperboard and with all the markings of the very last setup that I did as McAllister, and it was the scene in episode 6. My last scene was smashing the bastard out of that yellow car with a baseball bat.
Oh,
wow, that is cool.
I've also got the baseball bat signed, so
by the car?
Well, it's got a few bits in it from the car windscreen, but then most of the crew got their scribes on it, so yeah, shit, it's over.
No.
Bloody
well, I had 3 questions and you answered all of them.
Oh, don't worry, lads. Waited 2 years for this. You don't need to say a thing. This is all me.
And Lynn, I just want you to know that Kelsey and I have had a towel over our heads for 5 weeks trying to keep quiet about this. So,
of course, you guys do an amazing job of kind of, you know, I've listened to them all, and you bloody know what's going on, and you're like really good at keeping a lid on it. Like, oh my God, I've just watched it. This is, I'm well shot. You're better actor than some of us in the bloody show, I'll tell you.
It does make live tweeting hard. I will admit, but.
Deb, can I just say that is a lovely couch in your house there?
Oh, isn't it? Yes. It's a 3-piece ensemble.
For the purpose of the tape, Deb just profusely told me that was not her couch.
No, but ugly guys.
Oh, that's hilarious. Okay, so talking to John Jones and Michael Wood, both of them talked about getting up in your face, especially Michael Wood talking about probably irritating you some.
He was all up in my grill.
doing the close-ups and stuff, which is so different, and of course helped contribute to the episode feeling different.
Mm-hmm.
So can you talk about, I guess, that a little bit, and both in the episode 5 in the interrogation scene, and then of course, oh my God, the scenes in the therapist's office. Ugh. So heartbreaking.
Yeah. It's funny, man, because we were quite lucky on this block that a lot of it, certainly episode 6, I think we managed to shoot pretty much a load of it chronologically, which never happens. And one interesting thing about the therapist stuff, aside from the fact that it was like fucking 20 pages of dialogue, whereas normally it's a couple of pages and you can learn it in makeup. So thank you to Daniel MacPherson for helping me out for nights on end outside Boris's with a vodka soda and script in hand. He was helping me learn them because, I had a lot to go in. But we had actually shot the tower and the team turning up one morning, and then we broke it. We finished that kind of halfway through the day, and then I got whisked straight off to get de-blooded and cleaned up and sent off to do the therapist stuff, which was brilliant and bonkers because, particularly the bit, and again, the way it all comes out, and I don't know what Michael said, but about getting up in your face and everything, and those close-up shots, they really add it, and it's a very different style and a different feel. But I remember getting into that therapist stuff, and Claire Calbraith, who played the therapist, who was wonderful. We got to the bit where she's like, "Tell me what you can see, tell me what you can hear," and I'd learned it and I'd done a shit ton of work for it, but I never planned what's going to happen, or you don't plan what. So you just be real in that situation. And then when she's going, "What can you see? What can you hear?" It was like 2 hours before I could see my best friends and colleagues in the show, and and all of them, Dan, Lynn, Chetri, Bamba, my best mates, and it was just so real. And I actually saw them, and they were fucking incredible. So all I could see was the reality of like my best mate crying on me, my other best mates be like, it was fucking unreal. And I just went to absolute pieces, like I wasn't going, "Oh, this is what I'm going to do." And I just was fucking destroyed for about a day and a half doing it. And it's quite tricky because then when you come in to do the different angles, and as the ones that stay in, the ones where Michael Wood is pretty much sat on my knee, which is it's quite difficult to do. And again, I've watched it back and I go, "Oh, well," now not to say that, because I'm bloody crying, that makes it brilliant, but it's just very different, and you don't know what's going to stay in. And I think, it still absolutely has the effect, and the audience don't know. Oh, they do now because I'm moaning about it. But just on the day, it was just so real and so fresh in my mind that I had this vision of, and as I say, we have an amazing time on that job, but we're all there to serve the script and to be as authentic as possible and to bring it. And when we're dealing with this kind of material, it was pretty special as well. Everyone like absolutely brought it. So yeah, it bloody destroyed me, like actually just thinking back to it. But I think it came out all right, didn't it? I think.
Yeah, it was passable.
Yeah, it was
I think
good. Thanks, Deb.
It was worth a watch. Now, if
But,
you were destroyed,
sorry,
it destroyed us. I mean, we've watched it multiple times, and I think we sob harder.
Yeah.
When you hear the review, we can barely speak to each other. We're just crying. But when you got the script, I mean, we've seen you in other roles where you've had a much larger emotional range in the roles. And Mac, up until this point, until these
you tell me that Mac's
episodes,
got no emotional range, Deb.
no, I'm not going to tell you that. I'm just going to say he hasn't really been allowed to express his emotional range.
Okay. Well, that's not my bloody fault.
No, it's not. You haven't been given some of the meteor stuff.
No. You know what? Listen. I get that, but this is a very different kind of show, and I've absolutely loved it, and I've loved playing Mac, and he's a straightforward guy, and he's just been kind of down to the point and does his thing. Aside from kind of early doors with the team stuff and everything. So the opportunity to get to go on such a roller coaster with this particular block was incredible. So yeah, I loved it. I don't know what the question was.
I forgot. I don't know.
So it's just,
let's just cry some more. I don't know.
Yeah. more crying and more praise, please, Deb.
Sorry, I'm like we feel really professional right now.
Now it really was.
Me
It was
Me
just
too.
It was so nice to be able to get that out of you again, because I've so enjoyed. I mean, Good Cop destroyed me. You know, you were brilliant in Luther, and oh my God, X Company. We could do a whole show about that. In fact, I think we have. But it was just so nice to be able to get that from you again, and I'm really appreciative. So
Thank you so much. I mean, I get you. I just say the bloody words. Jack wrote it, but yeah, it's been amazing. And I really, again, I've hoped that certainly with our first season, kind of trying to take over from a show that's already up and running, and there's always that adjusting period. And I feel like, we got that by the end of it, and then the chance to go back and do season 2, where we're all up and running a bit more and everything's clicked. So then, you come into season 3, and I hope that it keeps getting better each year. And I really believe that we have. And I really think that this season is gonna top all of them. And I think it is so far. And knowing kind of what's coming, yeah, I think this is the best season ever. I just said it. I said it.
You said it.
Yes.
I'm silent. I'm not saying anything. I'm sorry, Philip.
Yeah. So I want to ask about, because you had some really amazing action stuff, and of course getting to see you fight is always one of our favorite things, because you have such a natural skill that you bring and
thank you.
Everything. So what do you find more difficult, doing some of the really complex fight scenes, or going there, in scenes in the therapist's office?
I think the beauty of this job, is that everything's so different, and from one role to the next, it's so different. And again, with this block and this season, Strike Back was the perfect job for me, because at the time, I think I'd done some what I considered really good quality drama shows. Oh God, that was my speaker turning off. And when Strike Back came up, I think I was shooting X Company. I was finishing the final season of X Company. We knew we were finishing, and my agent had sent me a tape for a show called Liar that was on a couple of years back in the UK. And I sent a tape and got that, and I'm like, amazing! I've got a job when I finish. This is brilliant. And that was going to span over Christmas and into the new year. And then my agent called again one day, and she's like, "Hi, so I've got another self-tape for you." And I was like, "What? I've got a job? What?" And she said, "So they're rebooting Strike Back." And it just went silent for a minute, and I was like, "Oh shit!" And I was a huge fan of the show previously, and it just kind of all fell at the same time. And I'm like, and I've never said this, and this is incredibly wank. I've said it twice. I've said it about 2 jobs. When you read something and you're just like, I have to do this. And I just, after that phone call, I said, I'm getting this fucking job, and I'm going to do anything I can to get it. And that's terribly wanky, but just when you know that something fits. And so this was the perfect time to, do acting. But yeah, the show's always kind of, the action's taking precedent. But, for us, myself and Dan and Elaine and the rest of the gang, certainly for me, and I remember kind of chatting with Dan a little bit early doors, for us to get, an action show and to play action heroes was insane. And yes, I could bring the fighting to it, but I also, learned a shit ton on this job about, fight choreography, of course, because I'm good at fighting for real, but when you're trying to fight and not hurt each other, that's a different thing. Ask a Lynn. But yeah, so this was just the perfect thing to kind of do everything, and it's been a bloody dream job, and so glad about the opportunity to do it.
So I'm wondering, because you mentioned, you've read the script and you're like, I have to do this job. And now Jack mentioned in one of our chats with him about when we were talking about casting and stuff, and he was like, Warren got the job because Warren was like, I'm not leaving until I get the job. So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the process of actually getting the job.
That's not true. That's not true. I mean, it kind of is, but it's not 100%. But Jack loves that story. So what did we do? So I got sent the tape. So I was still on the job, and I got sent a tape, and we all sent a tape in, all of us. And then a little while after, feedback came, oh, they like your tape, they want you to go to London. Now I'm shooting a job, I'm on a busy job at the minute, and I'm like, fuck, how's this going to work? I learnt a word. I don't know why I'm sharing this with you, but I will share this with you and the listeners around the world. Have you ever heard of the word paranoia?
Paranoia, no.
So if a person is paranoid, they believe that the world is conspiring against them. If someone believes in paranoia, they believe that the world or the universe or whatever it is your thing is conspiring in your favor.
Okay.
And it just so happened that every time they went, right, they need you to come to London now for a meeting, I'm like, ah. And I went to saw it was actually a producer, John Calvert, on X Company, who I only saw a couple of weeks ago in Toronto. And we had this same conversation. And he taught me the word paranoia. But it just kept falling into place that my day off happened to be on the day that they wanted to see me. Then I came back, and then a little while after that, they're like, right, they want you to go to chemistry test. So I'm like, oh, shit, brilliant, but oh, God, how am I going to do this? And again, somehow, somewhere was conspiring that I had 2 days off. I couldn't make the full 3 days, but I had the days off to get back to London, do the chemistry, and then, the rest is history. God, I waffle on a bit, don't I?
That's what people want. That's why people love you. So you brought up paranoia and you brought up chemistry tests. Can you tell us what those chemistry tests were like? Because, the three of you have an amazing chemistry, obviously on set, but clearly off set as well. So can you tell us what those first reads were like?
It was bloody horrible, actually. It was bloody horrible. There was 2 days of loads of people in for Mac, loads of people in for every character. So there's like 25 people in, and then as the couple of days go on, more people turn up. And I'm like, all right, mate, are you like loads of my mates were up for my part, and you're like, oh. I mean, that happens anyway in acting. You go to a meeting and someone else has been in for it, or who gets the role. But when you're actually forced to spend all day with them and hanging out, and everyone's bloody lovely as well, and you'd work with all of them because they're all great. But then you're like, all right, it's lunchtime. Shall we all go to Nando's? I'm at dinner with 5 Wyatts. Do you know what I mean? What's going on here? So that was it's a bit like the bloody X Factor. You've not got through, but we're going to make a band. And you're in and out, mix and match. And it was a funny old experience, one that I've never had like it. But I don't know, I didn't pick it, but I'm grateful that I got picked. And just, that team that kind of, you go in and out with everyone, and everyone's brilliant. And you're like, I'll work with anyone. As long as I get the job, I don't care. But as it happened, maybe in the room, me and Dan, Dan and I, or when Lynn and I, that's what they're looking for. And I'm not a casting director, so I don't know, but they're looking for that. And you can actually feel it, actually, because we all went for a drink afterwards. A few of us very nearly missed the plane back to Budapest. That's another story I won't bore you with. But we went for a drink, and you kind of ended up with the gang nearly, with the last people. And we were like, well, that other guy was great, but you were the best. You were definitely the best, Wyatt. And no, you were definitely if she's not gonna, you're definitely the best. And I'm waiting for them to go, yeah, you were definitely the best, Mac. But we kind of weirdly ended up in that little gang, and then a few weeks later we got it, and that was bonkers.
Oh no, you were the best, Mac.
Yeah.
So you brought up X Factor, and we heard that you won the X Factor.
Oh, my old mate, Gullible Summer Water.
Oh my God.
You must have had this story on here, right? She's told this.
So Dan actually gave us the story off record so that we could ask her when she came on. And then so we asked her when we interviewed her, and I think all of us were crying. We were laughing.
I love the girl to bits. She's a beast. She's amazing. But she's quite gullible. She's quite gullible. I don't know. I can't even remember. I think I was bloody. We all sing like dickheads in the makeup trailer, and then she's like, "Oh, you got a bad voice." And Dan was like, "Yeah, he was in X Factor." Or I don't know who started the bloody thing, but of course I'm going to go with it. And then I could see that she went for it, and she was like, and she believed it. So for years she kept telling everyone, "Oh, he was X Factor," and then we somehow managed to break the news to her. During an HBO Asian interview in Malaysia, she was like, "Yeah, he was an X Factor." And I was like, "Oh, shit." It was like we were about to tell a child that you really adopted. We were like, "Right, me and your mum have been talking and we need to tell you something. It's all been a lie." And,
You told her Santa wasn't real. That's terrible.
Wait a minute. What? Yeah. But oh well. What laughs we have had in the old days when the world wasn't dying and we all had jobs. Oh, it's a terrible state of affairs.
Oh. No, I imagine though, like, but for real, it's got to be pretty scary right now with everything being canceled. I mean, especially for you, as you always seem to be hopping all over internationally, and now you're stuck?
Well, that's it. And if I go out on my sword and Thomas McAllister was the last role I ever played, I can say I left it all out there and left it on the field. Oh, woe is me. I sound like I'm auditioning for another job, don't I? This is good.
It's exactly what you
get another job off. Hey, so we heard you on the Strike Back podcast, and
and now you're on Shakespeare.
Yes.
So can you? I mean, you were in Toronto doing some work, right? Can you tell us what you were doing in Toronto?
I was doing a little bit of motion capture for a thing that they'll chop my hands off if I say anything about. Top secret. When's this going out? I mean, no.
Saturday.
But I did a job with it. I had I think that last year, it was that last year when we were trying to do this, and I was running around, and I went to. When you say, "Oh, it's top secret," people always say to you, "You haven't asked this question, but whenever I'm doing any work and people say, 'What are you doing next?' or 'Can't you tell us?'" That's all people from where I live. And I go, no, of course I can tell you, because you can always tell people. And then every now and again, a job comes up that you can't tell people about. And I got offered this job on a sci-fi show that was on just recently, and you know what it is. But at the time, they're like, you can't talk about it. Don't tell anyone about it. And I made the mistake of going home at Christmas, excited that I was doing it. And they're like, so what are you doing next? And I'm like, oh, I'm doing this thing in South Africa, but I can't tell you about it. Now, as soon as you say, I can't tell you about it, all they want to know, why, what is it, what is it, what is it, is it this, is it this, is it that, I bet it's this, and I bet it's... So that I just should have just said, oh, I'm doing a little sci-fi indie thing, and then they wouldn't have been bothered. But anyway, why am I talking about this? So yes, I know why, because I'm in a very long-winded question. So I was in South Africa doing Doctor Who, with Jamie Stone, who was an ex-company director. And while I'm in bloody... See, this is paranoia again, gang. While I'm in bloody South Africa working, I get a message from another director, Grant Harvey, that said he's doing a thing for a computer game. Oh, I've given away too much. Doing a computer game in Toronto, and would I be interested in coming and doing a bit of action? What are you laughing at?
This is like the best interview ever.
You need to be on telly, you lot. Poor Deb, like she's doing breakdancing or something. Anyway, they got this thing to go, all right, go to Toronto, and did this motion capture thing, which was amazing for a computer game, but they're super top secret. But it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And then, I was just in LA, and in the middle of that, I had to run off back to Toronto to do a little bit more on that, and then go to Atlanta, where I saw your face.
Yeah. That was fun for me.
God, I remember Atlanta. I remember like it was a week and a half ago.
That was a whirlwind.
A week and a half ago.
Oh, God. Yeah. Atlanta was amazing. When you're not like looking back and going, oh my God, did I say this wrong? Did I say this wrong? Is he not going to come and do the interview because I made an idiot of myself?
Oh,
I'm just like, but it was wonderful.
Don't be so. Hey, I tell you what, though, I'll give you a little bit of inside info. You were probably there at the table when Bill Eagles was doing non-stop, and he did it for about 3 days. Bill Eagles, God rest. He's not dead. But the poor bugger just went on for 3 days about corona and worrying and stressing and saying it's this and it's that. And I'm not, it's a bloody severe thing that we're going through, and it's crazy times. But he went on about it and went on about it and went on about it. And then I flew back to LA with Chris Goldfroy, Go on the Golds from HBO. And Bidis texts us saying, just so you know, Bill Eagles has been rushed to hospital. He's got a virus. He'd worried himself sick, though, the man, is where I'm going. He's a directorial genius. Worried himself sick. So stay positive out there, people.
Yeah. I definitely felt bad because I came back after seeing you guys, and I called Deb and was like, oh my God, Bill Eagles went on and on and on about the coronavirus and blah. We were all, everybody's laughing, and I was like, now I'm like, fuck, he was right. Shit.
But also, look at him now, an extra day in Atlanta. He can't fly home.
Please tell us he's okay.
He's okay.
Okay.
He's okay. Reaches for
We
phone
love
and
Bill.
texts Bill Eagles.
Yeah.
Bill, are you okay? The girls want to know. I don't know. I haven't spoken to him for a week. He might. No, he'll be fine. He'll be fine. But yeah, he would himself sick.
Okay, that's a good lesson, everybody. Stay positive.
Be more like Bill. No, be less like Bill. Be more
less
like
like
Pepper.
Be prepared like Bill, but
Yeah.
not catastrophizing like Bill.
Yeah. Yes.
And we love you, Bill.
Yes. Love you, Bill. Love you, Bill.
I know, I'm like this.
My material doesn't work because there's a delay, isn't there? And I'm like, yeah, that's. Oh God.
Oh, God.
Delay.
I will tell you, we've gotten really good with like long-winded guests, and it's good to have long-winded guests because that's what everybody's here for. It shows
Did you call me?
more. We called you like
A
super
long-winded
interesting.
guest?
People love super interesting guests and
I've
guests
never
who
been
talk.
so insulted in
you
all
know.
my life.
Oh yeah, I could tell. But this might be the most ADD interview we've done yet, which is amazing. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
I'm like, I don't even know. Oh, you know what we'll do? We have one fan question for you.
Oh God, Dan MacPherson again. Bloody hell. Come on, Daniel. What have you got now for me? How do you tie your shoelaces? Oh, you know.
What can of Pringles would you make him?
What?
Oh, you missed it. You missed Dan MacPherson.
Oh, I might have seen some of them. I might have
Yeah.
seen mac and cheese. I think
It's
I
like-
saw.
Yeah.
And cheese.
It's my magnum opus was like creating Dan MacPherson as Pringles. It's the best thing
Okay,
I'll ever
some
do in my
people
life.
have
Forget my
got-
kids, you know.
Some people have got too much time on their hands. Let
Oh,
me
I
tell
don't know. I mean, that's what I get for calling you long-winded, I think.
Ow.
All right,
If
okay.
anyone's long-winded, it's Aileen Summer Water just after lunchtime.
Oh, God. Did you just call her gassy?
I called her gassy.
Again.
Nice. All right, okay. For the actual fan question from
Oh.
Jade, you got a chance to do some second unit directing on the show. How did you find switching from acting to directing?
How the bloody hell does she know that?
That's scary, but I don't know. She did.
Yeah, so one of the obviously spoiler alert, Mac's dead. So you know, for me that was me. I was finished episode 6 and I'm like, and you know, this has been such a huge part of all of our lives and my life for the last 3 years, and I wanted to see it through, and I wanted to be there at the end and wanted to be there to say thank you to everyone. And also, you buggers out there that are listening, yeah, you know who you are. You're all on it, and and because we social media, whatever the bloody hell it is, so much during the show. If I suddenly go AWOL, you lot are not stupid, and you're gonna know. So, and it started. I think it happened. I think someone did say, because I came home for a few weeks during Block 4, and then someone was like, "Hey, we haven't seen Mac for a while. I hope he's not dead." Like, oh. But yeah, I came back to shadow Bill Eagles. I asked at the very beginning because I knew I was going to be finishing, and I said, "Listen, would I be able to shadow the last block?" And they were like, "Yeah, no problem." And I think it was good for me to learn something, but also good for the show because I was able to be like, "Hey guys, here I am in the gym with the gang. You think I'm still working?" So I think it's been kept a secret, right? I think we've done a good job because often they get out. I mean, poor buggers in the UK are going to get spoilt, but never mind.
Well,
So, yeah,
and
so I
there's
got-
us saying that we thought you were going to die during the podcast, during our pre-season. I don't know if you heard that, but
Oh, well, you said it was, well, you bloody doomed me, you horrible
know.
cow.
Sorry, that was my prediction for the season, and Jack
Well,
was not
listen,
happy.
listen, if, you know what I mean, I've seen it before a couple of years ago in East London. A big copper says, "He's my mate and I love him." As soon as he says that,
oh yeah.
it's getting killed, right? Okay, I'm going to give you a bloody promotion because I think you're wonderful. That means I'm going to get killed. Oh, yeah. So I came back and did a bit of shadowing, and that was brilliant. And then, yeah, learnt so much just watching it and being behind the monitors. And you know what I will say? Like, I work with them all every day, so I know how good they are. But when I was able to just sit behind the monitor and not have to worry about what I was doing and just watch them all, I was like, fucking hell, they're even better than I thought. Just when you actually see, and we don't know this at the time because you're in there, you're in the space, and it all looks amazing, and the set's incredible. But when you're there, just seeing, and I'm doing a frame with my thumb and my fingers for those people that can't see at home. When you're just seeing it through the monitor and you see actually, more of how it's going to look on screen, it blew me away, and everyone's work blew me away. And I was like, oh, it's brilliant. And I think, it was really good. There's not an us and them, but we're in front and they're behind. And, speaking with the guys, it was like, oh, it's good that we've got like someone on the inside. So, no, it was an amazing experience. And then there was a little bit towards the end as it's all getting madness, as I'm sure you know by now, that the schedule is bloody ridiculous and too ambitious, but we managed to pull it off some bloody how. But every day's crazy. And I remember I was working with Fraser as well, who I love, who I actually only spoke to yesterday. Now, not yesterday as in the day you're listening to this, yesterday as in the day before it's just been filmed, because you're not going to listen to this until next week. And I was just listening to his episode. I don't know why. I was listening to his episode from ages ago that I hadn't finished, where he was, I think I started it on a plane the other week on my way to Toronto, and I only managed to finish it yesterday, where he's talking about Doantos. Yeah. Doantos. Anyway, I think we're all trying to get together for a little Strike Back soiree at some point in London. Anyway.
Gotta spread that coronavirus around,
yes. Oh, yeah. No, we're all right. We're section 20.
More alcohol.
But yeah, there was a day when Fraser and Nuala were chatting away, and they needed some stuff. And at this point, they're trying to juggle bloody cast from one side to the other. And they were, we can't do that. I can't fucking do that. And I was like having this internal monologue with myself. And I was like, this might be the time, Warren. And I went, listen, if there's any little tiny bits I can help out that can... And Fraser was like, brilliant, yeah, go on. Nuala was like, yeah, great, we'll do that tomorrow. So tomorrow rolls around, and I should have been doing 2 tiny little things. And of course, it all goes shit, so it's all going off. And Fraser's like, pulling his ginger hair out. And he's like, well, we'll have to send Warren then. And we'll send him up, and next minute we're up on the bloody hill with drones, and then come down the hill after that to do some inserts, because we thought we couldn't get the boats back out in the water. Next minute, oh no, we can get the boats back out in the water. So we ended up doing a bloody reverse of a speedboat chase for the last episode. That's fucking brilliant, by the way. You haven't seen this yet, and it's not been on, but the finale is going to be incredible. So yeah, got to do a mad little bit of a speed chase, and yeah, did another couple of little days, little inserts after that. So it was great, but I learned so much just hanging out with Bill and hanging out behind the monitor and chatting away, and and with Fraser as well. So yeah, it was a wonderful experience, and something I'd be keen to do more of in the future. And again, grateful to Jack and Nuala and Bill and Fraser for giving me. Thank you, guys. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. She's off again. I've never seen people trying to hold laughter in. Just let it out, girls. Stop. Hide it. Don't hold it in. Just let it go.
I can't.
Okay. So has what you learned behind the camera changed anything you've done in front of the camera since?
Well, I've not bloody worked since, my girl.
I was going to say, I don't think he's been in front of
Always the answer to that. And I might not ever work again.
That was the end.
That was it.
Do you have hopes to be back behind the camera?
Hang on a minute. Behind or in front? I don't know from where you're looking. Both in front and behind, please.
All right, we'll make that happen.
Talking about cameras. Don't shake your head at me, young lady. Yes, but who knows? Who knows? Who knows? For now, Strike Back's it. It's done. It's gone. Let it go.
God, stop saying that. Jesus Christ.
You can let go now, man. You can let go.
Oh, fuck, Warren.
Do that already.
Oh, God. That day was horrible. It was horrible as well. Again, because we were saying, especially that scene, it's like we're saying goodbye. Now, I've made mates for life on the show, and I've probably seen more of Dan than I did on set, actually, the last bloody few months until his job got shut down. But that was us saying goodbye as well. So that was, there was a few takes of that because we were actually a bit too much like, but John Jones reined that in. All right.
Michael Wood talked a little bit to us about it, saying that it was one of the first times he had been filming a death scene where not everybody popped up fine afterwards, that it felt so real, and like he was like everybody on set the whole time was just, it felt funeral like. So I guess, yeah, can you, like, how do you handle that? How do you set that up? How do you recover from that?
I don't know. Listen, it happened to Mac, and I guess this block is all about Mac, but it's not. I can't do it without every single person, and the writing, the direction, the cameras, the makeup, the costume, the ADs, my team, it's such a team job, the whole thing. Every year that we've done it, and it's the hardest job I've ever had, and I think everyone experiences that. But also, it's so much fun and it's so rewarding, and you do have an enormous sense of pride, like seeing it come to life and go, fucking hell, we did that together, all of us, by everyone absolutely busting their behinds to bring their best work. So I think everyone is on that job and on that particular block, knowing, and everyone reads it and everyone's like, fuck yeah, it's really good, and we all know it's something a bit different. And yeah, I think that everyone just believes in it, and every single person on that set wants the job to be the best it can be. And yeah, sad. Oh, I'm filling up now, girls. I'm getting emotional.
I'm starting to cry again.
It's fucking payback for doing it to us.
Yeah, seriously. Man, what morning did we record the
Monday?
Monday?
What
Monday morning we recorded the review for the episode, and it's just 20 minutes of us sobbing.
Good.
So we hope you all enjoyed that.
Yeah, I watched it. I've watched it a couple of times, and I can't. It brings me to tears watching it, just because I don't know. It's just all still there, still real, still, empathizing with the character, but just remembering what it was like and remembering how traumatic it was. Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah, our review had a lot of like, "Screw you, Jack," interspersed throughout the whole thing.
What were Jack's facts this week? Jack's facts.
Fuck.
You know them.
Well, he talked about the sort of foreshadowing, like the skull over Mac's shoulder, death in Venice following him. Talking about what a good job you did.
I think there was a point in Block 1 where the director wanted me to stop and look at the skull, and then carry it out. No fucking way. I'm just going to walk past it, and it's going to be there behind my head. I'm not stopping and staring at it. Anyway, what was his other fact?
Well, he said that something about everybody being sad, but it was like a great send-off for you, He said that at one point they were going to have Omar Idrisi in the yellow car, but he thought that would give it all away.
Yes. Wonderful song.
Oh, Chris Ryan.
Yeah, talked about Chris being...
Chris Ryan being there.
Hey, as a bonus, I know this episode is probably about 3 hours long now. So thanks for sticking with it, and thanks for growing beards while you're listening to this podcast. But you've had Jack's facts. Ooh. Now you're going to get Max facts.
Max facts.
Max facts. But I need to know what he'd said, but he won't say any of this. So I'll give you a couple of Max facts. Max watch in the future, or in this imaginary world, was set to 1:37. I set it to 1:37 because that was the time we finished filming Mac's death scene with the gang. No one would notice that, but his watch throughout all of that, whenever he's got the little white watch on, was at 1:37. What else? Did you notice, perchance, the street that Mac lived on? Mm-mm. Go back and re-watch it, and when he's sat outside and Wyatt's been cigaring and Novin comes out, and I go, what happened to whatever her face is? What was her bloody face? Oh, my God. I know
Reynolds.
No, the baddie who got me killed.
Oh,
Ivana.
Damachi.
Oh, this is
Damachi.
Embarrassing. This is embarrassing, my darling. Ariana Damachi. When I go, what happened to Ariana Damachi? There's a street sign behind my head, and the street that I live on is Madison Street.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, missed that one, and Jack never give you that one.
No.
What else? Obviously, you know that Chris Ryan was in the episode.
Yes.
Yeah.
Must have gone on about that. All right. Well, that's that. That was funny because just after Chris Ryan had gone back, he posted a picture of us and in the normal uniform, and I was like, is anyone going to tell him? Jack knew. Are you good? Yeah, we'll get onto it in the morning. And I was like, and I messaged. I said, Chris, someone might get onto you tomorrow about taking that down because it's a bit of a spoiler, lad. Yeah. And also, nice Easter egg for the fans to get that. I think if for him turning up as a surprise. Also, the radio op and the corporal in the flashback sequence happened to be two of my best mates.
Really?
Yes. They were coming over to visit anyway, and then I read the script and I'm like, oh, a couple of British soldiers. All right. Oh no, a couple of boys. So when my mate Jerry and my mate Louis, two of my best pals, had a little bit in the show.
Nice.
There you go. Any more?
Does that mean that the next show you do, since we're mates now, we can pop up?
Oh, sure, cool.
Let's just go.
I'd like Deb to play my wife, or I'm not doing it.
No, we just want to walk by in the background.
Yeah, and speaking of wives, I'm sure you must have picked up that my wife was called Amy. Oh my God.
Sure.
You called yourself super
We've
fans.
really tried to just block this whole thing out.
Wait,
since
you don't see the significance of Amy? Oh my God, I can't believe it. Super fans, Amy Leung from Malaysia.
Young, yeah.
Oh, I loved her!
Amy, look at that.
Fuck.
And while I'm on the subject, how brilliant was Claire Cooper as my wife? It was such an interesting block, that, because there were a few parts that were only in for a few days, but nothing in that block was for nothing. Every line, so many things were in response to something else, and we were so lucky, with a therapist, with Claire Kilbraith, and with Claire Cooper, who I knew a little bit but not loads, and we got to hang out, and she was amazing, and as was young Florence, who played Riley, who I never ever, here's another Max fact, I never ever referred to as Riley. I always referred to her as the kid.
The kid, yeah.
And who else do I call the kid? The kid.
Yeah, she threw me off. I will tell you, Deb and I had very different reactions watching episode 6. I fully bought into it. My notes were all like, they're gaslighting him. The therapist is in on it. And the kid threw me off because I was like, man, Jack did bad casting. This timeline is terrible.
You didn't think the kid was good?
No, she was great. I mean, she's old. I was like, she's way too old for when they're setting, Wyatt looks the same and Alin looks the same, and this is I thought, in my head, I literally was like, this is terrible. She should be way younger. And then I realized, oh, it's because it's a fucking dream.
Lisa McAllister, she grows quick, all right? Oh, God.
I didn't buy any of it, so...
Yeah.
I knew right away you were dead. Right away.
You didn't what, sorry?
I knew right away that Mac was dead. And we sent pictures of our notes to Jack. And, Kelsey's got all these notes from the episode. I had 2 notes. Opening right into music, not good. Oh, fuck, he's really dead. Those were my notes.
Yeah.
And this was how far into episode 6?
Probably 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I was like, there's something wrong here. He's really dead.
Oh,
as soon as they had you lying on the ground and coming up, I'm like, oh, that's a coffin. Okay. And then I was like, no, he's really dead.
Yeah.
So then I just stopped taking notes out of respect for the dead.
Well, I'm sorry that we couldn't write better for you, and we gave that to you. Bloody hell.
It was freaking amazing. It was amazing.
It was amazing.
Now listen, loads of people are, which is brilliant, about audiences, and everyone's got a different interpretation, and everyone has a different conversation, and so many people have been going, this can't be happening because of that, and I wonder whether it's this, and even when I read it, I'm like, fuck, he's made it here, and it's only until I think about 3/4 through that you go, oh, hang on, the penny drops. But still, I think we get so much from that episode, and again, certainly the flashback that, after my initial conversation, very early doors, was like, oh, it's insignificant. But that whole flashback is so important because, and Sharif, I must mention as well, he was incredible to work with. And we actually shot all of that Afghanistan stuff in the very first week on a very, a very, very steep hill in Croatia, which was possibly the hardest week of filming I've ever done. The whole block was the hardest thing I've ever done. And some of the best work, some of the best writing, and to get pushed by a wonderful director. But that week in particular, it was just like that. For people at home, I'm doing an angle with my hands. That can't
a really steep angle.
But that, the whole crew, absolutely everyone, and they were all bloody lugging up equipment up this bloody mountain. I've gone off on one. What was I saying? I forgot. What was
Talking about the flashback and how important
Oh,
it was.
yeah.
And it
So
was,
that whole,
yeah.
the whole thing comes down to, you see Mac for the first time, not as this hardened super soldier, not having killed anyone and getting caught in this situation. And then, it's Sharif's character says to him, do you see the eyes? Looking forward, looking back, looking for a way out. And that's exactly what's happening the whole episode.
Yeah.
I'll cry again, Kels. No, go on, cry. Go on.
My face, I can feel it like getting hot as I'm like trying not to. The whole flashback was amazing. And I kept thinking it was almost like doubly hard because the way they shot it, it's like seeing Ripley if Ripley was in uniform, because he's so like young and he's like innocent and like doesn't.
Did I look younger? Did I look younger? Do you think?
Yeah, I think
Now,
you look like.
Now
like
try once more with
baby.
conviction, Kelsey.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I wrote down. Oh, look, it's Baby Mac. He looks like Ripley.
No.
And I just was
A
like,
bit of a shave and a little bit of hair dye from Sean Gillings. Brush my hair forward.
yeah. See, I think the lesson here is that they've been aging you up the entire time. You really just naturally look like so young.
Thank you, darling. Thank you. If only that were true. No, I'm very versatile. I'm a very versatile actor. Fringe up or fringe down? That's my age.
Okay. Well, we're at. Deb, do you want to wrap us? Because my kids are about to riot.
The flashback was amazing, and it was especially amazing for me because I've said this already, that this episode, except for the fact that Mac died, was the episode that I always wanted Philip Winchester to be able to do with Stonebridge. I always wanted to see that from Stonebridge. So
you always
we're
wanted
going
to
to get
Stonebridge die.
No, dealing with the PTSD.
I wanted him to deal with the PTSD. I wanted him to have the happy family. I wanted to see all that, which I'm never going to get. So thank you for giving me it with Mac, except for dying.
No, thank you to everyone involved.
So we asked the same question to everyone to wrap up each episode of the podcast, and it's a question that Philip gave me. And it's a question he likes.
Uncle Strike Back.
Strike Back, yes. Who's doing great, guys. Anyway, it's a question that he likes to ask people about Strike Back and their experience on the show because, as he says, you're slogging through shit with rose-colored glasses on because it's such a grind, and then you look back and everything was so awesome. So can you give us, as he wants to know, 2 highs of your season and 2 lows of your season?
God, 2 highs.
But we'll take not just a season, because this is our only interview we get to do with you, so you can your whole time.
No, you've struggled to get rid of him. You haven't seen him for 15 years, and then you could never get rid of him, and he's on every week. Oh man, it's such a brilliant question. It's such a hard question. Man, the whole experience, some of the shit that we got to do, jumping out of helicopters, traveling the world, going to some ridiculous places, the people I've met on this job that have become friends for life, people from all over the world, the experience, I'll be forever grateful. It's a life-changing experience. So that's the highs, is the people. We go and do the work, and the work goes out and the work's received, and then the show, is forgotten apart from the diehards. But those friendships last, and the memories last, and I've had the best time. Oh God, lows. I mean, I'm not. Oh God. No, I'm going to hold it together. I don't know. Also with that, with the 6 months on the other side of the world, which is amazing, and the opportunity to work in another country and work with people from all over the world, but also to be away from your family for that time is difficult as well for everyone on that job. So that can be tough. I had a particular tough time in Malaysia when my dad had a couple of strokes, and you're not there and you can't just jump back. And I did manage to get back for a little minute. Right about the time I got burnt by a rogue special effect, so I needed a bit of time off anyway. But but that's that thing with this business. We all know what we're signing up for, and you know where you're going, and you've got a suitcase, and you'll sing for your supper. But it is hard to be so far. And other people on the job have got kids and have got families, and it's especially harder for them. Which I think even intensifies all our relationships, because we then become this dysfunctional family, home away from home, and we just all get each other through it. But what a roller coaster ride, and I'm just so grateful to everyone involved, from the legacy that Phil and Sully left, and MJ for kicking us off, and every single person I've had the privilege and honor to work with, the goodies and the baddies. Yeah, it's been amazing, and thank you for being so supportive, and thanks for all the super fans with all the fan art and the welcoming us into the warm Strike Back family bosom from early on. Well, not early on, from about halfway through season 1. But,
it's true. It's fair.
Jack, to Nuala, to Bill, to John, to Michael. I mean, there's too many. Stevie Murray. Oh, Stevie Murray's a god. You should get him on. He's the back.
Yeah, we would.
But just what a bloody joy. It's only when you actually finish it and stand back and go and get to think about it, because when you're doing it, you can't think about it, because you're just fighting for survival. We are scarred with love and memories and actual scars for life.
Thanks, and tune in next week for another Need to Know session at the Crib. Follow us on Twitter @StrikeBackCrib. Out.